Amidst an atrocious season for the Montreal Canadiens, where losses come in abundance, volume that we have never seen in historical times, Marty Saint-Louis comes, kind of rejuvenates this group, and the Montreal Canadiens get back in action with a 5-game winning streak, which hasn't happened without Carey Price in a long, long time, right? So since then, the question of if the rebuild is necessary has come upon us. Join alongside me today is Justin. My name is Mackie, missing Alex. Together, we make the No Respect podcast. If you've come for Habs content, you've come to the right place, folks. Justin, we made a video last week about Marty Saint-Louis. We made a joke about the fact that Marty is saying no to the Habs rebuild when all things were going completely I guess I could say shit hit the fan completely for the Montreal Canadiens. And it sparked some discussion for today's video. And let's start there. What did we see in last week's video that is inspiring us for today?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of different comments. Like, a lot of people that are on different sides of whether we should rebuild, whether we should retool, whether we should just go for the cup this year. So, I mean, yeah, we got a lot of comments. For example, this guy... if this is true, he's no longer a fan of Montreal. He says, playoff. What a stupid mentality. So that's Sean Wolfen. Like his comment. I just unliked it. Oops. Then we got Thanos, the destroyer of half of all living beings in the universe, who says...
Habs fan, I guess.
Of course. So he says, no one needs to rebuild. It's a quick retool if you know what you're doing as a GM. And that goes for every team in the league. If you hired better GMs, you would never have cap issues, never need to rebuild, only ever needing a quick retool of your rosters. So he's of the opinion that it's all up to the GM and they can move things around to win year after year. Which, there's some truth to it, I guess. And then finally we have another comment from RPM, who thinks that we already have good young talent and more on the way. This isn't a full-blown rebuild, so he's more of the retool party.
Yes. And then again, we're looking at ICYN beats with the core players getting up there in age and the prospect pool being average to below average. They do need a good 2-3 years of rebuild at the least. So again, a huge thank you to everybody that commented on that last video. And it inspired us for today. And we realized that looking through this comment section that we can create what we can call a concept map of the build spectrum, and this is beautifully done by Justin, an artist in himself. Again, no respect to talent galore right here. So as you can see, you want to take the folks alongside. The whole goal here today with today's video is to see where you fall on this spectrum. So by the end of this, when we go through, I guess, the full description, we'll go through our own takes. Give us your number and why you're at that number. And we'd like to go through all of those comments as we head into the trade deadline and how that's going to impact the strategy. So please go in with all those details. But let's start off with the definition of this rebuild spectrum. So let's start with the left side, obviously, tank. Justin, take us through this beautiful piece of art.
Well, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's basically just a scale from 0 to 10. 0 is you want to tank, you want to sell all the pieces we have and basically restart from nothing, or maybe keeping like the untouchable players maybe. 10, you want to contend this year. You want to contend. You think your team's ready to go. We don't need anything actually. We're ready to make the playoffs, which is obviously impossible at this point. So yeah, in the middle, obviously, there's a 5, which is the eternal mediocrity connection point. So yeah.
Yeah. So what I want to add is maybe a couple of notes here. You got your notepad ready to go, I'm pretty sure. So what I would also add to the tank side of things is that you're trying to get younger, right? So you're going to write young. You're going to also write that you're going to be selling, right? You're selling everyone. So this is going below your camera, so we can't see it. If you can add it maybe to a section that's a little bit more in the middle. But that being said, you got selling. What else are you doing when you tank? Not at the cap, not spending at the cap, getting rid of bad contracts. Draft picks, all of these things. Let's just take these notes quickly. So yeah, when you're on this side, it's basically anyone that great writing. When you're on this side, you're basically getting rid of anyone that is not part of a future Habs roster that's going to have great impact. So I would say if you're at zero, even players that you feel that can be useful in a slash retool slash rebuild, like maybe a Josh Anderson, you're getting rid of him, right? I would think that you're going straight for maybe your untouchables, which would be Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, or probably just going from scratch even. Like you're ready to consider any piece and start tearing it down from the bottom. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great. So from that side, going all the way to the right side, obviously this is where you're older. The complete opposite. You're buying at the deadline. You don't give a shit about your draft picks. You're going from a standpoint where you think you're going to go for the cup, right? So anything that's going to help your team in the immediate future and be performing now, you don't care what the cost of business is for your future prospects. You're trying to go for the cup. Now, the Habs have never been on the right side, and they've never been on the left side, I would say. Like you said, there's been eternal mediocrity with maybe a little bit of the contention side on some of the years. I would say the years that we got Thomas Vanek, at the trade deadline for not much. They never went all in and sold any first round draft picks. Actually, the first time that happened under Marc Bergevin was for Christian Dvorak. So I would say that we went in right after and we stopped here at a 7 and 8. I would say that we're heading more towards the left side of the spectrum. Where do you stand, Justin, in this beautiful spectrum that you just drew us?
I mean, at this point, I think I'm very low in the spectrum. I think I'm around probably a 1.5 or a 2. Like I'd put myself here. And the reason being, and this is not necessarily for the next 5 years. I'm just saying that we shouldn't have the intention to contend anytime soon. Like I think the next 2 or 3 years should be spent just developing new talent and gathering draft picks, like kind of just building up our team. I don't think we should be. Maybe if something special happens and our team of misfits gets to the playoffs, then maybe we just ride through the playoffs and see what happens. But I don't think we should be contending. I don't think we should be trading away young players or draft picks or prospects. I think we should just full rebuild for me.
Okay, fair enough. So I agree. I definitely am on the left side of things, and I think that everybody would probably be there if you're reasonable. I don't think anybody's at the 8, 9, 10 range after this season, and especially given the fact that the Montreal Canadiens, yes, they're moving in the right direction ever since Marty Saint-Louis came aboard. I would definitely put myself at the 3 range, in between the 3 and 4 range, because for me, the main thing here is that there's pieces that I feel are still interesting. And I'm not ready to say that I'm just going to trade everything. I could keep a couple of players like a Brendan Gallagher, maybe a Jeff Petrie, maybe even a Carey Price. I think that there's enough talent that is going to be ready to take on the torch, that I want somebody to be there to pass the torch to them. I don't want them to just be left alone and kind of go into an Ottawa situation where they're like their leader is Evgeny Dadonov, and then he leaves for Vegas. I want some people that are staples, some presence to keep the young player pool that we have right now, and that's the reason why I'm there. So it's more on the question of we have pieces. I'm ready for a transformation, but I'm not ready to sell everything that we have right now and just start from absolute scratch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think I maybe spoke too soon saying to sell everything. I didn't mean to sell everything necessarily. I just mean that we shouldn't be buying anything. We should be selling everything that's over maybe 27 years old, or that we consider as a piece that's very kind of leadership heavy or can mentor young players. And I mean, I just think, we just need to rebuild, I think.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and I think the biggest difference is that I'm ready to make a move that might jump us from 3.5 to later on if the right move is to be made. You know what I mean? Like I'm ready to. I don't want to necessarily just take, a timestamp and say next 5 years, no matter what's happening, we're making sure that we're tanking and we're just doing this. Just react to what's going on with the roster that you have. And I could be wrong. This is why I'm in an IKEA chair at home and talking into a mic to you on a Wednesday night here. So I could be wrong, but this is my train of thought. React to what's going on with the roster, your development, and if you're doing the right things. I tend to agree with some of the comments that say that you can transform a team and it doesn't necessarily take 10 years, because there's a bunch of rules in terms of tanking that everybody says you need a generational talent. Not everybody gets the generational talent and everything goes well. We've got Edmonton, that's a good example of that. We've got Buffalo, that's a good example of that. So that's why I think that you need to be smart. You can't just tank at 100% and not try to make moves to make your team competitive and better.
The thing I'll say to that is, I do agree that you can go through transformations, and like year after year you can make your team a lot better, make your team a lot worse. I don't think you can go from being a piss poor team, bottom feeder, to being a contender. I think you can go from being someone on the outside looking in to being a playoff team. I think you can go from a playoff team to being a contender. But I don't think you can make the jump as fast and as far as we would have to go. So to me, it's at least a 3 year, like 3 years of being not making the playoffs, being mediocre, and just trying to get draft picks, and then we'll see what happens after that. I agree with you that if there's some magical thing that happens and we strike gold or something and we find that our team is great, then sure, let's ride that. But barring that, I think it's kind of a teardown.
Okay, fair enough. And I mean, a good example of what you're talking about is the Maple Leafs. I remember the press conferences with Mike Babcock at the time and Shanahan that you get ready for pain, and then they drafted Austin Matthews and they started figuring out that okay, we're more ready than we are. That's my whole point, is that if you start seeing that you've got the pieces needed, start building right away. Don't just wait because of some set timeline and that's it. So that's it for us. That's our takes. We could be wrong. If you want to roast us, welcome aboard. You just please subscribe, like if you can, if you're going to do that to our egos. And again, just get involved in the discussion. Where do you fall? Are you closer to the 0? Are you a 2.5? Are you a 7.7? Where are you and why are you there on this beautiful spectrum that Justin created? Once again, a huge thank you to everybody that's been watching these videos, liking, subscribing. Again, we are the No Respect Podcast, missing Alex today, but we got Justin, myself, Mackie, and we shall see you guys soon. Go Habs, go! And merci et bonsoir.